Hello and welcome to a very special Film Ireland podcast in partnership with Crewless.ie. I'm Gemma Creagh and I'll be chatting with Crewless founders Kevin O'Regan and Tommy Flavin. So Crewless is a new way to hire Ireland's best freelancers in minutes, and it aims to make finding crew members much less stressful for producers. It's a website with over 1,300 crew signed up across the island of Ireland and across all production departments, which is always very handy. And it has an emphasis on simplicity. So producers can post a job in no time, and then this is emailed directly to whatever type of crew they need, and who can only apply if they are marked as available. Producers can then compare applicants' rates and experience and read reviews from other producers on their profile. So most jobs have applicants within 5 minutes, and the best part is it's completely free to use. So thank you so much for chatting with us.
No problem at all. Delighted to be on. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, we're delighted to have you. So you have a lovely post up if anyone hasn't read it, with some great tips for people that maybe are thinking of just looking to find work as a freelancer. And there's some great tips on there that you guys obviously have lived. You're people that have walked the walk, like, and now you're talking the talk, which is refreshing as well. First, before we get into Crewless, and that's very exciting, I was wondering if you guys could talk to me a little bit about your journey to get there, your experiences in production, and where the idea came from.
Yeah, so the two of us go way back. So we've been friends all the way along, making films for years and years. So we would have started out as two freelancers ourselves, doing a lot of filming and editing and that.
I might interrupt you there. We actually started before that again, when we were in transition year of school. I think a lot of people in the industry these days have started with the TY workshop.
What was your mini company, just to get a sense of you guys as entrepreneurs?
No, not a mini company at all. No, we'd no interest then. We were still creatives.
You didn't do a mini company for...
Didn't do a mini company. No, we did. We had somebody come in and do a filmmaking workshop. So we both had our scripts separately chosen. So mine was written by, directed, and starring me. Kev was much more humble in that he took a backseat role with his production. And I suppose we started making it. We took the course way too seriously, and we just spent all the rest of our teenage time making short films. When everyone else was off in like COS and places like that on their 6th year school holidays, having the crack, we were here at home making a self-funded musical short. So yeah, that's how we started, and then I suppose Kevin let you take it up from there.
We got a bit of a encouragement from, I think we came third in the Fresh Film Festival one year with that musical short, who've had us back a few times to adjudicate and stuff, which was great. So we got a bit of encouragement along the way, and then that person who got us into film in the first place probably gave us one of our first paying jobs. So we started to think, Janie, there might be a bit of a career in this for us. So we started off very small in the basement of an old fire station in Rathmines. Was our first office, about 4 meters squared. But anyway, we were two freelancers at that point, doing everything ourselves, the pair of us. And then as we kind of figured things were going quite well, things started to grow. We were still doing a good bit of creative stuff and getting more and then to the commercial side as well.
And actually, even this will feed back into what we're going to say later. But you were saying you were doing freelance work and doing creatives. Like, what did you guys start off on set as working at? Like, what were your first sort of roles that broke you into the industry?
So actually, my background was in classical music. That's what I studied at 3rd level. So when I realized I actually wasn't that good at playing the piano, I got more into the recording side of things. So actually my background would be in audio, and then I was doing the music, all the soundtracks for Tommy's films, who was up in film school and DIT. So in terms of on set, if it was the pair of us filming, it's been a while since we did that, thank God. But I would have been recording sound and Tommy would have been shooting it.
And would you done post as well? Would you have like a spectrum of...
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we ended up, I think, again, just kind of the way it fell. Kev tended to do more of the editing, whereas I did more of the shooting. And it was just basically like, because there's only two of us, the budgets were all terrible. So it was just kind of had to fill all roles. So we've a small bit of experience in probably everything from every kind of role, including hair and makeup, set design, everything you can imagine. We've done a little bit of at some point in the early years.
And you moved into commercials then, which is definitely like Although short films are the most beautiful of things, they don't always pay that well. So tell me a little bit about that transition. How did you make the move into that realm?
This is it, yeah. So, I suppose, yeah, people started paying us to do things, and this was kind of at the tail end of the recession at this point, and going out and getting your own job was kind of it was much better off to start your own company at that point. So it was kind of by chance, but it turned out we were fairly good at it. So we established as the Reelists was the name of our production company. And we started hiring people on, started getting bigger clients, and I suppose we developed a bit of a reputation that we were kind of on the up and up, really from kind of 2017 onwards. Um, and so we kind of went from being freelancers to hiring a lot of freelancers as well, kind of. Um, but it was useful to kind of have come from that background and knowing the struggles that they were facing.
Yeah, and I think as well, okay, so you talked about like 2008, like towards the and then the recession hit and all this is sort of happening at that period. It definitely was like I know it wasn't even that long ago, really, only a couple of years for those of us who are like age. But it doesn't feel like that long ago, but it was such a different industry at the time. So did you guys notice like the different types of jobs that were around, the different types of gigs that you were being offered? Did you guys notice a kind of shift in what was happening?
Yeah, I think we really noticed, like, because we would have come out of college in 2015. So we kind of started then, things were so quiet, there was so little going on. Budgets were just horrendous for everything. I think then maybe around 2018 or so, we suddenly realized it just felt like this sort of tide was rising and a lot more started to come through. And it just sort of went kind of up and up and up between then and COVID, I suppose, which is probably only 2 years, but it felt like a lot longer at the time. So, but yeah, we've really felt like, I mean, even looking back at like those early days and stuff, like the equipment we had to buy and stuff, it was probably 10 times more expensive than the equipment someone starting out now would buy, but it was like 20 times worse. And I think we'd find even like stuff like just the basics of trying to get like an editing suite together, of trying to get your programs, all of it was like so much more expensive and so much harder to do. So like certainly from like a freelance perspective, it's it's so much I envy people starting out now, in one way because it's like you can do so much more with so much less. I suppose the flip side is probably there's so many more people doing it, but it's just funny when you look back at, when we think of when we were in that like weird basement of a fire station years ago of like just the terrible equipment we had then and how expensive that was to us.
Before we kind of fully move on to the I'd love to talk to you guys about even creative process and things like that. So you get an ad campaign or you've a good idea for a short film. How would you guys realize it together? Like what sort of stories were you drawn to? How do you guys bounce off one another?
Yeah, we've gone we've changed our process so many times over the years. When we were starting out, there'd be the pair of us sitting and looking at the same edit for like 60 hours in a week just to get it right. So I suppose scale necessitated change there. Say for example, at the moment we split our projects between us. Generally we take them on individually, and then obviously we use each other for support as we go along. But I think I don't think either of us would have gone through all this just alone. Like I'd say to anybody starting out any kind of business, not to go it alone, like having two pairs of eyes, pairs of ears, two brains, working on any task, especially creative, is super. Often you need just someone to take it and run initially and get that first draft out, which is the hardest thing. But then having two people looking at it from there on is really important. So I think from like developing a business from scratch and developing a creative project or an ad campaign from scratch is the exact same thing. And we've always found that we're different. We obviously get on very well, but I'd be probably the more cautious person, and Tommy be a bit more kind of gung ho. I think that has really worked for us over the years as well, having a bit of a balance and different personality types there.
And checks and balances, definitely. Because like that's it. You can kind of push and then you'll always have someone to kind of reel you back in. And then you'll always have like the safety net of someone who's like, I've actually prepared for failure just in case. Um and tell me about we'll go back where we were to the industry and that changing and you could feel like how hard it was to get crew. And there's been a few points now where we've been at peak employment. And I know that differs from post and then production. Can you tell me a little bit about like what led you to realize Crewless was needed as a service?
I think we'd found that over the last couple of years, in those times you say when you're kind of at the absolute peak and you've so many projects coming in and you don't want to say no to stuff because it's great and there's obviously the same dilemma as everybody. There's a quiet period coming in 2 or 3 months, so you want to just take everything in. But we realized that, as we had projects coming in, we were wasting so much time on finding crew. Like obviously we've got our regulars, like everybody does, our regular crew that you'd use for stuff. But say if they weren't available or if they weren't right for the job or whatever reason, it was just such an ordeal trying to find crew of any type.
Especially if there's one big production happening as well. If you're a smaller company and you've one huge big like foundation or something like that, like sweeping up everybody in the whole regions.
Absolutely. And we certainly found that maybe 2 years ago, I think, when oh, I'm forgetting the name, when Disenchanted was in town, we couldn't find a camera operator for like 3 months. They just swept everybody up. Um, so times like that, when your first or second people aren't available, we just had nowhere to turn. And you'd find yourself, you're on these Facebook groups, you're WhatsApping people, you're putting posts up on Instagram, you're Google searching people. You'll find someone eventually, maybe there's no guarantee, and the whole time you should be off working on something else. You should be developing creative or you should be working on all the other productions. But instead you're here kind of trawling through old emails trying to find if someone sent in a show reel 5 years ago or are they still even in business anymore? All of this. And it was just kind of unbelievable. Kind of every time it happened, like, is there no better way of finding this? And there really wasn't in Ireland. Like there was no better way of finding it. So that's, I suppose, the background to it. And then it was Kevin kind of joined the dots on it and came up with the idea in the first place.
I think it just we found that the thing that had us like working in the evening most and up to midnight and beyond, apart from some late night edits, finishing deadlines, but was finding crew. And as as a producer, you've got so many plates spinning, and it's such a sense of relief when you've got like a talented crew booked in. You're like, well, look, there's only so far it can fall at this point if I've got a good team booked in for it. But often that process would take days, or you're waiting for people to get back to you. If you go to somebody, they're not free, they've sent you a referral, you send an email to them, they haven't got back to you yet. It's just kind of building that stress, which is unnecessary. And we really felt that there was a way to get out of that. So I mean, if other people had been using it, it's great that they are, but we'd be using it ourselves, I think, just to take the stress
That
out.
was really our conversation in the early days when we kind of thought, Kev kind of came with the idea and was like, oh, I think this might be something. And we're like, yeah, this makes sense. And then we're like, oh, I wonder if other people use it. In the end, we're like, look, let's just do it anyway, because if nobody else uses it, we need this ourselves. So it'll be worth it from that point alone,
Because it is so convenient. And I just got set up on it. And we were saying this just before we started chatting, but someone had emailed me one of the jobs from it. Like just emailed, gone, Jesus, this seems right up your alley. I think the thing about it that I like, maybe as a user, you might have done all the research on this, but I did find this. If you have LinkedIn, you have your whole experience. It's so broad. Like so many of us, especially if you're freelancing, will have work in other sectors. So you're
Yeah.
going like, I'm a hyphenate, a hyphenate, a hyphenate. So what, like, it's almost like you have your entire life story on there. But I do think what's very specific about this is how focused it is to your technical abilities relating to film, how you can search for it very specifically. Like I'm getting offered like, and LinkedIn is great as a social network. Jesus,
Mm.
it's great for keeping on touch with what people are doing. But like the jobs that I'd get from it, even with its like super good algorithm, aren't related to me at all. Like there's like one keyword in common. In terms of setting it up. So you guys were like, there's a need for it. Like we'll put it together. What was that process like?
Yeah. So I'll let you talk about like the customer side in a second, because I just wanted to just when you're talking about LinkedIn and stuff,
Yeah.
as soon as we had the idea, we had a really clear vision of like this needs to be so simple,
Yeah.
because we've used, again, as freelancers ourselves, as people that have run a business and are trying to bring in business, we've used LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Google search, you know, directory sites. I think we're on the Yellow Pages for a while. Like every kind of place where you could possibly get 1 or 2 jobs, we've had a presence. So we've had some experience with all of them. So we knew what we didn't want it to be. And we're like, we don't want it to be. Do you remember, Kev, you used to go every Friday morning and you go through all of the different sites, having a scroll through, finding was there any jobs, was there any opportunities there? And we're like, we don't want that because it's unnecessary. As much as it's unnecessary for you as a producer to have to be WhatsApping 20 different people to see if they're available. We're like, look, this is a simple thing. I have a job and I need somebody. On the flip side of it, somebody's there. I've got X amount of skills and I need, roles that'll fill those. So we kind of said, look, everything that's aside from that is unnecessary. So we wanted to create something where basically the idea was after you'd set up your profile, ideally you spend as little time as possible on the website. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, they're trying to get you to spend hours on it every day. We're like, we don't want you to come onto this website. We want you to spend 5 minutes at the start setting up a really good profile and then just close it down. Don't go back on there. You do not need to come on and check every day, every week at all. Just wait for the emails to come in. Have a look, all the details in the email. If it's not interesting to you, you don't need to do anything. If it is, you click apply. And again, when you click apply, we want to make that as simple as possible. We've signed up to other, international sites that are kind of focused around getting jobs and stuff like that. And again, they look great on the face of it, but we found every time we clicked in to send our application for a job or whatever, if you've had 2 hours there filling out, your brief, your experience, your show reels, we were pasting in the same information every single time, right? This is crazy. So we wanted to make it literally like one click. Like you look at it. Am I interested? Yes, I am. Fine. If you've got a little bit of information you want to send on, there's space for that. But we wanted to make it as simple as possible and just to, you've enough to be doing. And that's, I suppose, our vision is it's like your job is not being on LinkedIn. It's not being on Instagram. It's not cold calling people. Your job is picking up a camera, picking up a makeup brush. It's, being a producer. It's whatever. Like we wanted to give people back that time. So it was really to try and just make it as absolutely bare bones and as simple as possible.
Yeah, I was up in about 5 minutes. So like because like I got sent an RSVP for one thing and I actually stopped halfway through like because I gave up for like a different thing. And then
Yeah.
when you just put in like, yeah, it's nice and it's simple and you put stuff in and that's it, you get stuff that's relevant immediately, which is really, really helpful. And what has it been like sort of setting it up? What was the kind of different stages of it? Like you knew it needed to be set up. Then like was it procuring a designer and working with a designer? Do you guys have some skills that you bring to it specifically technical?
So I suppose it was quite different to our process of setting up the Reelists because the Reelists was just sitting into, this fabric of production companies out there. We weren't doing anything specifically innovative. We just wanted to be really good at what we were doing and take a slice of the pie. Whereas for Crewless, it was something that didn't exist, that we wanted to make really sure before we put in a load of work into it, that it was something that people wanted. So the very first thing we did was just have as many conversations as we could. So we went and talked. We obviously have a wide network around the freelancer community and the producer community across film, TV, and commercial and advertising. So we went and just talked to a load of people. Ginger tea was flowing, after all these phone conversations. We wanted to spend a good bit of time on that and just make sure that other people were experiencing the problems that we were, So that was the first stage, and again, quite different to setting up a services company. This was kind of more like a startup, I suppose. So we went and did that first, and we found that kind of evidence that we were looking for. And then the next thing was getting like the most base, what they call an MVP, minimal viable product, out there and working. Which poor old Tommy is his cross to bear.
Yeah, we thought at first we were going to find a web developer and get them to build it with us, but we just realized like we couldn't justify the money, and we've worked with web developers before, and no offense to web developers, but it can be quite difficult and quite time consuming. So in the end, I just taught myself to do it and just sat down for a while and built.
Wow.
And it seems to work. I mean, it hasn't
Works great. Oh my God. That is one particular skill set that I have no idea. That is not a natural transition from being a dab hand behind the camera. Maybe like technical bits of VFX.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I suppose we're kind of used to being self-taught in that, like we would have started out, like kind of cobbling together edits yourself, everything's self-taught when you start. So I suppose it's just natural to kind of try and muddle your way through these things, lots of YouTube videos. Same as how either of us would have learned to edit on Premiere or whatever. Like, you just sort of figure it out. There's a couple of weeks there where you're just banging your head against the wall, but eventually it all starts to make sense. So, and look, from my perspective, I thought Kev was the one out doing the hard work. He had to go talk to real people and pick up the phone and that. Like, I just had my headphones on and I was tapping away in the computer all day. So no one was talking to me. I was happy enough, like.
The few times I had a look at what Tommy was doing, it did actually look surprisingly like an After Effects kind of timeline, writing his expressions and stuff like that. So I can see a bit of connection, I guess.
Yeah, it's just maths. I think once it's like a language and maths kick in, I think my brain just shuts down.
Yeah, but
um,
it's been great though because it means that when we get a bit of feedback, so like if a producer gets in touch or a freelancer and says, "Hey, I think this could work better," and we've gotten loads of, which has been really cool. We've got people get in touch like, "Hey, have you thought about this? Like this might work better." And we're like, "Oh, that's a great idea." And 10 minutes later, it's live on the website. So that's actually turned out to be, it was just I just did it because we had no money, like, but it turned out to be a real strength in that sense that we can just bring in people's ideas sort of straight away and stuff, which has been really fun.
and if the bottom ever falls out of the industry here, you've a complete backup career that you're
Yeah,
like
can't wait.
done.
Always
Convenient.
dreamed of being a web designer.
Oh my God.
Um,
And tell me, like, so starting this must have been easy. And you said you kind of started it at um like that like grassroots level, like creating a product that worked. Was there any kind of issues that cropped up along the way? Was there anything that, like that you didn't expect to do? Like I know like just with filming anything, there's always 1,000 things that go wrong for a shoot.
yeah, I mean, look, there's always little bits and pieces. We've been lucky so far to have no major disasters, thankfully. Like the beginning of it was really easy once we had the website up and running. We started off by opening it up to the freelancers to sign up. And I think we had our first 100 within a week. And in the 6 months ish since we started up now, 6 or 7 months, we're up to over 1,200, nearly 1,300 people signed up to the platform. So that end of things was, I suppose, surprisingly easy to get people to sign up. We thought we'd really kind of have to be going hammer and tongs and sending out messages directly to people, running advertising campaigns to get the crew up. But it's kind of spread like wildfire. We've had to do very little kind of advertisement and marketing to get them up. And we've just gone to a few kind of niche roles and stuff like that to try get a few more people on board. But that's kind of been quite easy, which is great because there's plenty of other difficult bits. But as always with the struggle, and everybody said this to us from day one, the struggle will be to get people actually using it, putting jobs on the platform. So I suppose that's probably the difficult thing, but it's been very interesting talking to the producers. It's something that we're doing in conjunction with them to see like what do they need, what do they value most, how do they work currently, how can we improve that. So like for example, the number one thing, unsurprisingly, really, with Crew is trust, which is why people have their networks. They go to people that they know already. So we kind of heard that and would have introduced a feature there, probably a little over a month ago there, of endorsements, not too dissimilar to LinkedIn, where producers can go on and review the crew. So even if the project was something that has happened before Crewless or outside of Crewless, that's fine. But just that when you're going on, you're looking for a crew member, the number one worry is that, can I trust them? Are they going to be like nice on set? They might be really good at what they do, but they mightn't be, a very personable person. So those endorsements have helped a lot, where people have picked them up, and you can just see instantly there, right? I know that producer, I know that production company. They've given them a thumbs up. I'm now happy that I can trust them to go ahead.
From the producer's side, what's the technical process of putting up roles? What are the type of roles really that again you could put it up and you'd get like a bunch of applications for?
Yeah, so we tried to make it as simple as possible, almost as simple as sending a WhatsApp message to someone you know. So the actual form for posting a job, I think there's just four different fields. You put in your title, the dates, the crew that you need, the skills that you need on set, and then a brief description. And we've just got a few notes on like what we like to see. And then they hit post. You need to set up your profile before it'll actually go out to the freelancers. Just we've heard that from freelancers, like they'll often not apply if a producer hasn't filled out their profile very much because people are picky about who they work for and they don't want to go into kind of an unknown situation. So you just fill out the producer then very short again, just a bio, like that's it, your name, your email and bio. And then the job gets sent out to the freelancers. So that gets sent to them direct by email. So they'll get that basic info coming up in the email. They can hit apply with one click there. They have the option of writing a note to the producer, which we encourage people to do. It kind of, you can set yourself aside. You might have done a job that's like really similar to this one that they've posted. You're like, actually, this isn't on my profile, but this is super relevant. So to write a short note, and then what the producer gets is a dashboard with everybody who's applied for that job and a chat window for each. So they can have a look through people, see like what they've quoted their rate for the job, look at their previous experience, and then open that up and chat back to which freelancers that they want to talk to. And go on and hire them from that. So we try to make it basically once you've posted that job, it's the same as getting onto somebody on WhatsApp, but then it's not, mixing with your personal conversations and stuff, which was another thing that I always found really annoying about, you'd have to text, trying to get a 10-person crew together and then your WhatsApp's polluted, which was always a bit of a pain.
That's it. I think anything like that you kind of like you can opt into, but you're
Mm.
not kind of constantly being harassed while you're out in the street. Because what happens is if you really invested, you just keep checking and that's your entire day gone. Um, okay, and what productions have you helped crew up then? Like what are the type of roles that you've been filling?
It's really been a really wide spectrum so far. So like, we've had kind of day players for film and TV. We've had 3 to 6 month engagements for TV series going up there. We've had lots of short films, lots of corporate ads, TVCs, live events, pretty much the full spectrum of where you might expect to work. We've had something up there, and it's been everything from a 1 day job up to in some cases like 3 to 6 months of an engagement and stuff like that. So, and then in terms of roles, again, it's been the full gamut of stuff. Like, we've had people on there looking for directors for a TV series for a couple of months. We've had, obviously lots of camera, lots of posts, lots of, hair makeup, lots of kind of like drone pilots, sound ops, and any role you can name, it's pretty much been up there. So we've enjoyed seeing that so far, that there's been like a really widespread, and that you wouldn't say, oh, it's this only now at the moment. It really is the widest spread of types of production and of roles as well. And we really enjoy seeing jobs coming in and just seeing like what are people up to and that. It's always lovely to see what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, it's been
Oh,
interesting as the jobs have been flowing quite regularly now, maybe about two a day at the moment. Just that kind of split between like maybe your most common on-set roles across TV, film, and advertising, and then like really niche stuff. It's great to see, and then going out and trying to find the people to sign up to the platform. If we were like, oh, we've only got like 3 or 4 people in that, but it's been really cool seeing the different types of productions coming up.
so what would there be lots of, and like what are the things that you'd be like, actually, if I add that to my CV, I'll never not work. Like what are the niche ones that people are really hungry for?
Um, I suppose there hasn't been any like super niche roles that have come up commonly. It's been a mix. One thing that we have seen a big demand for though geographically and regionally is people, say producers in Dublin and Wicklow looking for crew all around the country. So
Right.
it's kind of showing us that that network is kind of still local, that people's own networks tend not to extend. I mean, we would have found the same, and we'd often have shoots in Cork and Galway, and those would have always gone to trying to find someone outside of our network. We might have 1 or 2 people, but then the chance that they're free. So we have seen that people do have maybe a lack of contacts in other parts of the country to themselves.
And so you're doing this, you're finding people. Have you guys like put the realists on pause? Are you just being very selective about the work? How are you managing that workload?
Yeah, like the realist is kind of, I suppose, has taken a back seat over the last while. Like it's really something that we just kind of do enough of to kind of keep ourselves going. So we just kind of work with our own clients. We're not doing any major productions these days. We're just kind of doing, yeah, a lot of business with clients we've had for years and stuff. really our kind of desire for a long time has been to move into something like this, because I think, we find like anybody else that, running a production company or being a producer or whatever, it's exhausting, and we found over the years it's never gotten any easier. You never really get into a flow as such, like, and I think we've just gotten sick of so many Friday nights that you spend there, trying to get last emails out at 9 o'clock in the evening, or Saturdays and Sundays there trying
So
to.
you decided to take the easy route and start a business from scratch and drum up business and market people and find people and teach yourself to code. Just simple, easygoing things.
What's easier than running one business, running two businesses?
Exactly,
That's what
Businesses.
pretty
Yeah.
sure they say.
Yeah. I think that's work-life balance, is just being as busy after 6 o'clock as you are before it. So it's
Uh,
been good.
but it is exciting, and I think even like it works really well. The design is really beautiful. I think it does a service that is really, really important. And I think like again, like the bugbears that I might have is, like the elements of nepotism where, you're only getting work because you know people, you are from a certain area, you like it does kind of, it's nice to have something that, opens up a pool of opportunities to people that maybe not always have them. And it's interesting that you talk about work in the regions in terms of why should Dublin have, like, I mean, if you think of the beautiful scenery that exists all around the country, all the creative talent that exists around. And actually I just want to go into the roles that you're filling. The majority of people on your site, would you have, say, mostly one type of crew? Would you have, like, say, mostly camera people or a lot of camera people or lots of editors? Like, say, if you're like, if someone's listening and they're an editor, would you'd be like, yeah, please sign up, you'll have loads of work. Do you know, is there anything like that, or does it just shift too often to gauge?
It surprises us, because we really thought, like, when we started this, that it's just going to be like mostly camera people and then like 10% of other stuff. But actually, it has surprised us in that the roles being advertised are really widespread. And we're not just saying that as a marketing thing. Like, we literally couldn't point to one type of role and say this above all else. Like, it really is widespread. Um, I think in terms of our user base, like, it is of course going to be more edit, camera, directors. Those are kind of the big ones that like have the most. So I suppose what I'd say to anyone listening is, if you're a Gaeilgeoir, please sign up. We have a surprising amount, and that was definitely something that surprised us recently, a surprising amount of Irish language stuff, which again, I suppose shows that people are turning to it when they need to fill a specific niche that they might necessarily know somebody directly. So if you've got, Irish at all, please do sign up for this site, because there are quite a few roles being posted that specifically need Gaeilgeoirs. But we'd say as well is that, like, if you've got anything that you would consider like a niche role, like, please sign up. Again, you can put up to 10 skills there. So like, you can put in, if you work as a DOP 90% of your job, but you also have, like, say you can work as a DIT or something like that. Put that in there as well, because those are roles that are being hired quite a bit, are niche roles. So anything, if you think of yourself as a niche, definitely get on the site. And particularly if you got Couple Focal as well, definitely get on there. And I suppose the other thing is really, like, I've heard it from a couple of users reaching out to me saying, oh, I'm nervous about writing down where I'm from because I feel all the work's in Dublin. And again, it's really not the case. Like, we are seeing, like, a lot of jobs are being spread around the country. Um, and particularly people, people don't want to be spending half their crew budget on, like, accommodation and petrol and per diems and all this. So, like, if you're, I hate this term, from a region, like, everywhere's a region, particularly it's two people who are from outside of Dublin. But yeah, if you're, like, not living in Dublin, please do sign up here, because, like, there are, like, a lot of roles that have been advertised for around the country.
That's very interesting. And do you notice, like, are there times where it's busier? Are there times where you've noticed, like, okay, well, there's like summer, we're always booked up, or like, like there's seasons or anything like that?
Yeah.
Or any other trends or something like that you can see because you're looking at pure data and requests?
So I suppose, like, Crewless has only been going 6 months, so it'll be kind of hard. It'll probably take a little while to iron out and see where we're still getting people using it in the first place. From our experience in the Reelists, but I know this across film and TV as well. Like, January is just like the death of all work, really. And everybody plans for a quiet period in January. We ran a talk this January called Dry January. And it's kind of similar to that article that you have published for us, which is just like what to do in the downtime and how to set yourself up best and how to kind of build your network, maintain your network. And there's some tips and tricks in that article again for people if they want to have a look and see what we recommend to do in the downtime, as well as joining Crewless. And hopefully we'll be doing that networking for you. And then we would see like a big rush up to the end of the year, really. Generally, we would have seen kind of a big push kind of early summer, things dying down again around kind of now, and then building back up again from September right to the end of the year. But it's been kind of, I know it's been a difficult year for a lot of people with the American writers' strike, that the industry has been so quiet. I remember hearing that the UK had 70% unemployment for crew there at an earlier point this year. Like, so it's been a rough old year for people.
I don't know if this exists as a producer's perspective, because I've only started it as a freelancer perspective. But I know one of the things that a lot of people are very conscientious is, you know, DEI and having different representations of different groups where possible, in different roles, especially HODs. Is there any ability to say, if I'm a producer, to say, no, I would like a more inclusive set, and how would I do that?
I suppose the first thing that we've been like pleasantly surprised at is kind of, particularly from a gender perspective, like it's quite balanced on there at the moment. I mean, it's not 50-50 or anything like that, but we were kind of pleasantly surprised without having to go and do anything, and how much, like, you know, how many women were signing up in pretty much all roles, and particularly then when you look at jobs that are being posted, like that there's quite a lot of women applying for maybe roles that would have typically been thought of as male dominated roles and stuff. So we've been really happy to see that, and as I say, it's nothing that we've done at all, you know, or tried to make any intervention on. So it's been great to sort of see maybe that's a sign that the industry is changing a bit the last couple of years, which is long overdue. Aside from that, like, we really don't get involved in choosing people at all at this point.
That's what you can put it in your call out. If you could say, like, you encourage people from different backgrounds and to apply, and like that, if you make it sort of a safe, like, that's kind of on the producer then to stress that.
It really is on the producer to in terms of, well, we don't let people kind of specify anything like that. You know, we kind of just say, look, you post the roles you want. It's up to you. If you want more of this kind of person, that kind of person, that's entirely on you, you know. I think the reason we don't want to get too involved in that stuff is
Very legal.
well, look, like look,
yeah.
let's be real, but as well, we feel a lot of producers, from what we hear from them, is no more than ourselves, they pride themselves on their ability to pick a really talented, balanced crew. So we don't want to start getting algorithms in there or putting recommendations for it or anything, because I think, you know, I certainly put a lot of thought when I'm picking a crew into the mix of people. I try to bring a balance of people to set. I try to think of, oh, who's the client? What's the mood here? What kind of people do we want? And I think most producers are like that. So we really leave that up to them. But I suppose what we're seeing, which is nice, is that like the pool is there, you know, without having to make great interventions. You'll see, if you post a role, you should see a good balance of people applying. And then really it's up to the producers to do the work there in terms of, you know, and it's something we do consciously on our sets. And I hope most producers are the same at this point, is trying to make sure that there is a blend of backgrounds and genders and stuff on set. Because I think it's really important. You know, we even notice the tone. There's the odd time you end up with a set that's all lads and maybe they're all in their 20s or 30s or whatever, and the mood's just a little bit different versus, say, a set where there's different ages, there's different backgrounds, there's all of that. And I think you know, it makes for a better, more creative space. And particularly, I think the more diversity you can have on set, the more diversity of voices and creative opinions you're having. So, you know, yeah, we don't get involved, but we really would encourage our producers to do it themselves, you know, because it's only a good thing, really.
And we'd hope that Crewless would help people, like, to make that kind of a bit easier, because what I've heard from the producers from the day one of talking to them about this is that they do want to have a wider network. They do want access to it, but I suppose practically at the end of the day, a lot of the time they're under massive time pressure, and like hence the kind of the temptation to go to that person who you've gone to every single time. But they do want to have that option of like having access to a wider pool. So we kind of hope that Crewless would give them an opportunity to do that, to have to look at your, say, whatever 10 onset roles you've got and say, right, this is easy now to bring more balance into the onset crew because they have the options there to choose from. They're not having to go out and like actively build their own network to be bigger. So we're hoping that we do that for them.
And that's it. You have your talent pool and just like a bunch of different people that you picked that you probably would never have met or heard of before. Because again, like LinkedIn is kind of like such a vast thing that you can't see all those skill sets, or it might be 4 layers down in someone's experience because their coffee shop job is the one that's marked as present.
Yeah.
And just tell me, like, do you have any success stories? Has there been any sort of like producers that have been highly delighted, or freelancers that have gotten a break they haven't necessarily
Yeah.
like expected?
Yeah, I think the first thing to say on that is that, like, as it stands now, the vast majority of jobs that are posted, producers find somebody really good, and they're really happy with who they find. And the vast majority of jobs that are posted, producers get at least one applicant within 5 minutes of it going live. So broadly, everybody seems to be quite happy with it. But Kev's got a couple of, I think, specific stories for you.
Yeah, we had a great time. We were down at the Galway Film Flat, set up there in the hotel in the Galmont for a couple of days, and we had quite a few freelance crew come up to us while we were there just to say thanks that they'd gotten a job off and that they love it. So it's great to hear those things, and we kind of, as jobs get posted and filled and completed, we're talking to both sides, producers and freelancers, and it's been great to hear feedback. And there's kind of been we've made changes off the back of that as well. It's obviously lovely to just have your ego boosted a little bit with a job that went really well, but we've also learned a lot of valuable stuff that's going to help us develop this and make it better for everybody going forward. There was one particular story about, and I think we'll have an article out with yourselves involving this down the line. But we had a second AD for Whitetail there, that feature film, Belgian co-production filming down in Kerry. And so the second AD there, Carmen, was looking for a trainee AD. And Carmen herself would have found in Dublin trying to crack into like groups, the WhatsApp groups, and be in the mix for these jobs, like really a struggle. So she'd already gotten there, but then she's delighted to see that we were trying to help kind of get rid of that insider kind of job giving out. Especially in Dublin, she said it's very difficult to crack into. So anyway, she was able to use this to hire Alan for the job. So she posted the job. She got 15 applicants for the job. Alan was in there. He had the availability. It was a decent stretch of an engagement. And what's lovely to hear after chatting to the two of them afterwards is they've become really good friends. And that Carmen said she can't kind of imagine not having him now on a production. So it really was kind of a match made in heaven. Obviously she was able to post the job quite easily, get a list of people she wasn't aware of there before. She's got now people she can go to, and then somebody who worked out really, really well. And for Alan as well, it was kind of a step up from his previous roles. So for him, he's kind of using it to advance his career. And for Carmen, it took a little bit of stress out of her life trying to find somebody.
That's lovely that connection is made, because I do think it's about like building the networks, and the relationships are really what's so important. And it's like it's the first thing if people are going in. It's like, show up to the events, go to the talks, like, but it's nice that you can, you know, come to this from not having like nepotism on your side or something like that, and get a start, because it can be so daunting as well, because from the outside looking in, it's like it's a pretty big beast, but once you're in here, there's no anonymity, everyone.
Yeah, that's it. We did a survey of freelancers actually a couple of months ago, and well over half of people said that network was like one of their big struggles basically with freelance life. There's obviously plenty going on, but that having that network, building it in the first place, getting into it, and then making sure that everybody knows when you're available and all that was like a major worry for them.
That is amazing. There's so much to kind of process there. So what has been your favorite thing about starting this up?
I think we've really enjoyed like the community side of it. Kind of building this sort of community of freelancers, or not building a community of freelancers, but bringing together the freelance community and maybe like kind of creating a space for it. We've really enjoyed that. So, you know, we've got the Instagram page. We love highlighting a freelancer every week who's we think is doing something really cool, who's on our platform. You know, we've been doing surveys with users to understand how they think about their work. We just chat to people the whole time, whether it's like email or DMs or whatever. They're kind of constantly telling us about their work. We're doing, you know, these online sessions and workshops and stuff for people, and just all of that chat. We've really enjoyed getting that feedback from people and hearing about how they like to work and what they are enjoying or what they're worried about. And just generally, I suppose what we found is when we started Crewless, what really surprised us was that people seem to really want some sort of space where they could just go and just talk about their work, even if it's not directly wanting to get jobs. It's just somewhere to come and talk. Because I think as a freelancer, your work is quite lonely a lot of the time. You know, you're in competition with your peers, and you know, the people around you in day-to-day life aren't necessarily people you work with, and it can be quite isolating. So I think we were quite surprised at how enthusiastic people were about just having somewhere to come and chat. And it's certainly something we're hoping to build on maybe later in the platform to give them more just social spaces and stuff like that, and more opportunities for people to just casually kind of exchange with each other and stuff like that.
Especially if you're working remotely, if you're editing, if you're writing, if you're doing admin, if you're something that isn't on set, yeah, it can be like that. And part of it is you can feel like I often feel massive FOMO where you know everyone's out doing stuff and you feel like you're there. So I think, yeah, having the opportunity to plug into things seems very worthwhile.
Absolutely, yeah. And we would have seen down at the Galway Film Flower we were set up there, and people were just so delighted to be kind of meeting in person. I know for us, it would be the kind of the first industry big event with lots of people there that we would have been to since COVID started. But we heard from other people as well. They're just delighted to have, you know, a place to come and chat to other people in the industry. As I say, a lot of like writers and people who wouldn't necessarily be on set and meeting people the whole time. So I think there's definitely a space for more of that. People are a bit sick of the Zoom call and the phone call and the bedroom office. So which is exactly where we're speaking from now. So I can definitely relate to them.
Any updates or like what's any upcoming features or like what's next for Crewless?
Yeah, so it's been going really well the last couple of months. You know, we've really just been focused on getting like people on board and trying to get jobs posted and making sure that, you know, everyone's kind of happy with how it's working, and we're kind of creating something that's useful for people really has been our focus. So we've a couple of features in development now. So our next thing is we're hoping to start processing payment through the platform. So our vision for that is that producers, instead of at the end of the month having to pay 20 or 30 different people and all these different invoices, is they'll just pay one invoice at the end of the month. That'll just cover all of their freelancing. And then for the freelancers, they don't have to keep track of all of these different invoices, following up on them. They'll just get paid automatically by us. So we're kind of hoping to simplify that because again, that's something that certainly we found is a massive waste of time. And again, for a lot of freelancers, again, your job is what you do. It's being creative. Your job is not sending emails asking about your invoice for the 20th time. So we're hoping to take that away. And then from producers, again, it's like your job is like making videos or making films or TV or whatever. Your job is not sitting down last day of the month with a giant pile of invoices and hoping you don't mix up people's IBANs and all that kind of crack. So that's one big feature we're hoping. And then I suppose the other thing is like we've heard as much as everybody else, like the big worry going around the industry at the minute is the new revenue rules around freelancers.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously there's been this recent update from revenue that under pretty much 99% of cases, they're going to consider people who we would have all thought of as freelancers now as employees. So we know that's a huge worry for like a lot of producers. And also for freelancers because they're kind of not sure where they stand. So at the moment, we're working on something to alleviate that. We can't really say too much yet until it's all set, but I suppose watch this space. It is kind of, I suppose, one of the biggest problems in the industry this year, and it's something that we're really focusing a lot of time on trying to come up with a solution to. So we're hoping to be able to announce something around that in the next kind of short while, hopefully.
That's very apt. I know writers were very nervous because if you lose your artist exemption grant, and if you're technically an employee, you might lose the rights to what you're working on, which is a real like hairy situation. So yeah, we look forward to see any solutions that solve any of those problems. Thank you so much for chatting with us. That was very enlightening.
Great. Well, listen, thanks for having us. It's been really nice to be able to spread the word, and we love just talking to people about this. So thank you.
Whether you're a producer or a freelancer, make sure to register now on Crewless.ie.